There she is. Hello.
That was Microsoft's fault.
Hello, everybody. How you doing? Welcome out there. If you're not impacted by this tech outage and you were actually able to show up, good to see you. We're going to be covered. We're going to spend almost the whole. Oh, and please welcome Eleanor Goldfield. Sorry. Well, no,
when did I become an and?
Well, here's the thing: is I often give the what we're going to hit before I even say my own name. So. I was
ready for you to do that.
No, but last time you got offended. So I was going to do that, but then I realized I should introduce Eleanor Goldfield. Then that's the part where for the podcast listener, you go, hello.
Hello.
We're going to get into the fact that Yemen actually hit Tel Aviv. We're going to get into other aspects of that. And how people are fighting back against Israel and their ongoing genocide, which now has hit 9 months. There's an update from the World Court. Netanyahu's coming to town. All of this is coming up in the next hour. But we're going to start with what might be the only part of this hour that does not end up being Israel-Gaza, which is, so there's this massive IT outage, the worldwide, as... Do you want to say your funny point about how all the headlines say the largest IT outage in history?
I take issue with that headline because there hasn't been so much history with IT. So it's not like when we say it's the hottest year in 2,000 years. That is like some shit. Okay, 100%. That is hard to wrap your head around. The largest IT, like there hasn't, like I was born before there was IT at most places. So it's like
the Renaissance. The Renaissance had some very smooth running IT. There was like very few outages.
Yeah, you know how to not have an outage, just don't have the things. So
Dark Ages, very few.
Which both of those names are total BS.
Yeah, the Dark Ages were not dark. Shit went on during the Dark Ages. Anyway. We were not even going to talk about the giant IT outage, although it is kind of funny to watch world systems collapse. But except for when I then read who caused the IT outage, and now I can't resist. Here's from the New York Times. Airlines, hospitals around the world, people's computers were affected after CrowdStrike, a cybersecurity company, sent out a flawed software update. CrowdStrike. Is anyone wondering why that name sounds familiar to you right now? CrowdStrike, the cybersecurity company. Oh, it turns out they are the company that pretended they were paid a lot of money by the Democratic Party to work for the Democratic Party and say that Russia was the one who hacked the Hillary Clinton's emails, the DNC emails, and revealed them through WikiLeaks. But when CrowdStrike, I mean, there's multiple hilarious aspects of this, but when CrowdStrike, when the CEO was in front of Congress and he was actually, held down in terms of like, what exactly do you know as to Russia infiltrating DNC servers, he said, we have no evidence that Russia ever, the term was exfiltrated, meaning stole any data out of these servers.
We don't know why we're here, actually. We were just looking for the bathrooms, actually. Congress, we got lost. And
we were taking a tour of the mall here.
Thought I'd have a seat and answer some questions. I don't know.
But so CrowdStrike was given the servers of the DNC by the DNC, and according to Donna Brazil, former head of the DNC, the CrowdStrike was not given the real servers. The real servers were burned. Literally, Donna Brazil said, we created mock-ups of the servers to give to the FBI and CrowdStrike to investigate. The real servers, we burned. Because that's what you do. If you find like a dead body and you call the police, before the police get there, you chop up the body and throw it in the river because...
Or you burn it.
Or you burn it. That's what you do. You got to get rid of that. And then you tell them, yeah, there was totally a dead guy here. But anyway, so they get rid of the real servers. Then they're paying this company some crazy amount of money so that the company then says, yes, Russia did it, except in front of Congress. Well, Russia didn't really do it. We saw evidence that they got into the server. We have no evidence that they ever stole any data. And of course, there's a lot of evidence that it was a leak, not a hack, that someone downloaded it onto thumb drives. And if it's a leak, that means it came from, guess what? Inside the DNC, not some dastardly Russians.
Anyway, this sounds like the kind of company that should be handling the world's IT.
Totally should be put in charge of world IT. So glad to see CrowdStrike still doing well.
I saw pictures from BWI, the Baltimore airport, and they were writing tickets out in paper. Do you remember the last time that you had a ticket that actually looked like it had been created by like a typewriter or something,
or a handwritten? Yeah.
I mean, it's been forever ago. It's just so wild. And I mean, that's a funny instance, although not funny for people who are stuck.
Not if you're at the airport right
now.
But
I mean, there's serious issues like with hospitals and, there can be actual lives put at risk because some douche canoe at CrowdStrike didn't know how to update his software correctly. And it's like we have such a remarkably fragile system that holds up everything that we rely on every single day. And it's moments like these where you're reminded of that. And that's why, folks, I recommend that you prep, not in the kind of like nationalistic white supremacist way, but in a realistic, like,
you mean
save some rainwater
and
sure, you're obviously not prepping. And like a generator and solar powered batteries and shit like that, because when things go awry, they don't have a clue how to fix it, and no one's coming to help you because no one cares about people.
Let's be honest. 70% of your prepping is like a crank powered air conditioner.
So what's your point? I know the necessities, Lee, and my body temperature staying below a certain level is the difference between me being me and me being
insane
homicidal maniac.
All right, moving on. A drone from Yemen actually succeeded in hitting its mark in Tel Aviv. Some are reporting it is, I think, the U.S. Embassy in Tel Aviv, but either way, definitely hit Tel Aviv. And these strikes by Yemen are really changing the equation for Israel in terms of shutting down their economy. I covered the other day that 46,000 businesses in Israel have shut down since October 7th. Some of the ports are going bankrupt because they have zero boats coming in. And now Yemen is succeeding in hitting Tel Aviv.
Apparently one person was...
Stop.
Are you okay?
Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, I can keep... Okay. Apparently one person was killed in the drone strike. The Yemeni forces named the drone Jaffa, which is after the Palestinian city of Jaffa, over which Tel Aviv was built. And they say that according to the Yemeni forces, they have a very large stock of this type of drone. And they're saying that this is not the last weapon that they will use to target Israel. And they consider it to be a success. And of course, you can feel however you want to feel about this. I think it's important to note something that I follow this person, Tiberius, on Twitter. He writes really great stuff. And he wrote a tweet that says, Israel drops more bombs on Gaza than bombings in Dresden, Hamburg, and London combined from World War II, up to 200,000 feared dead. Media, Israel has a right to defend itself. Yemen strikes Tel Aviv with one drone, kills one. Media, terror attack in Tel Aviv.
Right. It's terrorism if Yemen does it.
No. So again, you can feel however you want to feel about what's happened here. There's a reason that we're talking about this one. That was... What was that?
That's the sound.
Oh.
I'm trying to... All right, go ahead.
So that's one bomb, right? And in one day, there are 6,000 bombs that are dropped on Gaza. We couldn't possibly talk about each and every bomb and where it lands and the destruction that it does. So I think it's important to recognize the difference and the disparity in how this is covered by the media.
Yeah, and this also goes to show that Israel's so-called Iron Dome is not actually what they claim it is. As I don't know if this article says it, but in another article I saw that Israel is saying it, or articles, reporters are saying that, so Yemen fired, I think, 4 or 5 of these and only one got through, but some of the other ones were shot down by the United States. So it's like Israel's so-called Iron Dome consists of US-backed, protection for genocide. And that's what we're seeing going on. And Yemen is able to get through that protection for genocide. And the truth is, genocide should be expensive. It should not be easy. It should not be easy to do.
Also, this hit was quite close to the U.S. consulate in Tel Aviv, which obviously that was not an accident. The U.S. has bombed Yemen continuously, both by proxy during the Saudi genocide in Yemen that lasted almost a decade, but then, of course, once Yemen started blocking and attacking ships, the U.S. attacked, and the U.S. and the U.K. attacked them directly. So this is a response.
And in terms of the Iron Dome not being as effective as they claim, that Israel claims, I, of course, covered the attack by Iran, which the IDF has lowered the percentage that they were able to stop, which that was the IDF, France, the United States, and Jordan all trying, maybe even Saudi Arabia hit a couple, trying to stop this 300 projectile attack from Iran, and they were able to stop 86% of them with 4 or 5 countries doing it. And the 14% that got through were the more expensive missiles that basically Iran proved they could fire through anytime they want. So Israel's in a different position than they were when they thought they were able to stop all of these missiles. A very different position. I'll also real quick show this is a tanker that was hit by Yemen the other day.
And what tanker is this? What is it?
Yeah. Just give me 1 second.
Okay.
I'm waiting for the footage before. Ansar Allah hit the oil tanker Chios Lion, which belongs to Greece, and was sailing under the flag of Liberia with a surface drone. They also claim successful attacks on 2 other tankers.
So I guess I'm assuming this tanker was headed to
I think it was headed to Israel. I think it was headed to Israel, or it's possible that they feel that Greece, simply because it's a Western nation that has not fought back against this genocide, is culpable as well. I don't know, but pretty major attacks coming from the Houthis in Yemen. And warfare is really changing. It's not just the way that it used to be with the U.S. just bombing the shit out of everyone. Now you see these small drones that relatively small countries or relatively underfunded militaries can have an impact on the equation for this genocide. Let's also, while we're on the equation of Israel's ongoing genocide, let's talk about Hezbollah's attacks.
Yeah, and to be clear, Lebanon is a place that Israel has been attacking for quite some time. So if you read reports of Israel attacks Damascus or Israel attacks Lebanon, it's like Israel's targets are not inside of Israel alone. Israel has long been trying to either and successfully has annexed land from other countries, but not least of all Palestine, of course, but other countries outside of that, but is also clearly trying to push towards a regional and all-out world war. And this was Hezbollah's response. And something else to understand is that while the genocide in Gaza has been ongoing, Israeli settlements have
expanded,
I hate to use the word. Yes, expanded is a better word. I was going to say exploded. But there's been far more violence by Israeli settlers and the IDF, wherever you draw that line between the two of them, I don't know. In the West Bank, for instance, also in Jerusalem, and places that are still heavily contested. And so this response is in but by Hezbollah is not just about the attacks in Lebanon, but also the fact that Israel has ramped up its violent settler colonialism significantly since October 7th.
Donation.
So basically what happened was that on July 19th, the same day that the Houthis attacked Tel Aviv, Hezbollah launched a barrage of rockets at the Israeli settlement of Abirim. And basically it's, it says that at least 4 people were killed and over 10 injured in Israeli airstrikes on the outskirts of southern Lebanese towns of Safad al-Batik and Majal Slim on July 18th. So this was their response primarily to those attacks in southern Lebanon. Basically this is an ongoing fight between Hezbollah and Israel, but that also, of course, includes the fight against Israeli settlements and the expansion of the settler colonialist state.
Thank you, Momo, for the donation, for the solidarity. Yeah, and as I covered, I think it might have been, it was a special segment the other day, so not everyone saw it, but Netanyahu is trying to, and this was Colonel McGregor had said this as well, but I've been saying, many have been saying it, Netanyahu needs to drag the U.S. even more into this. I mean, this is a U.S.-backed genocide, but the U.S. would prefer that their involvement kind of ends with sending missiles to rain down on children every day, as opposed to actual, U.S. jets fighting Lebanon. And as I tried to explain, maybe I tried to give some nuance, which a lot of people don't want to hear, is that, yes, the U.S. war state, the U.S. government wants war, but it doesn't want every war, and it doesn't want all the wars at full capacity. Like, the U.S. loves making a lot of money. The weapon contractors are making a lot of money in the proxy war in Ukraine. The U.S. does not want to boots on the ground largely in Ukraine, except for the CIA on the border there. But you know what I mean. They don't want 10,000 troops marching into Ukraine. So there's some nuance in what the U.S. empire
and they certainly don't want boots on the ground in Iran.
No, in Iran, absolutely not. Iran is a very strong country with a very strong military, relatively speaking, and the U.S. would be fucked if we went to full war with Iran, which is what there are a lot of neocons that want it, including Trump's new VP, J.D. Vance.
And Netanyahu.
And Netanyahu. But Netanyahu needs it.
Which might as well be the vice president of the U.S. I mean, I think he does way more about U.S. policy than Kamala Harris does.
Ooh, as long as you mention that, let's talk about how, real quick, where is it? Oh, how Netanyahu's coming to town, because he is the vice president, basically. Netanyahu's coming to town, and I think everyone should go there and arrest Netanyahu.
Yeah.
This is from Jewish Voice for Peace. Arrest Netanyahu, all out to the Capitol. He will be there on July 24th, 5 days from now, at the Capitol. I think everyone who's able to should show up in D.C.
There's another, I don't know if I still have it up. There's another one that suggests that people meet at the Capitol at 11 a.m. on July 24th. This is a coalition of groups that's putting it on. Jewish Voice for Peace, Answer Coalition, things like that. Palestinian Youth Movement. So if you look up, I think you can go to the Answer Coalition site, and it's like right on the front page. But it says meet at the Capitol, wear red at 11 a.m. on Wednesday, July 24th. And just going back real quick to the Hezbollah attack, I just wanted to share a message that was made by Hezbollah leader Hassan Nasrallah on July 17th, who said, continuing to target civilians will push the resistance to launch missiles and target new settlements that were not targeted before. Because what Israel is doing in southern Lebanon, Hezbollah mentions that several children were killed in this attack. Israel's doing what Israel does, which is targeting civilians. And Hezbollah is saying, well, if you do that, we are going to respond. And I think this reminds me of Chris Hedges' quote, where he said, speaking about U.S. empire, he said, if you speak to the world in a language of violence, you shouldn't be surprised when they respond in the same language.
Yeah.
And I think this is what Israel is learning, but also in some twisted way what Israel wants, because they're hoping that if enough attacks happen on Israel, the US will be compelled, much like we've seen in the past with these alliances that push the world into a world war, that the US will be compelled to show up in a much stronger and overt way. So I think Israel doesn't mind losing. I mean, they have the Hannibal directive, right? Like, they don't mind losing people if it pushes towards the goal of a regional war, and I guess being kings of a graveyard.
Alex has a note for you. Thank you, Alex, for the donation.
Dude, for real. I'm just saying.
For those listening to the podcast, Alex has said he likes when I accidentally cover Eleanor's face with the browser because there's a lot of little toggles here, okay?
Well, learn your damn toggles.
Sometimes I don't
practice your toggles.
Like, look, there's a little picture of the one dude with the thingamabobber, and there's the two dudes with a lady here. I don't know.
Learn your toggles.
Learn your toggles.
I got plenty more glares, Alex.
Thank you, Linda, for the donation, for solidarity for this show. Really appreciate it. You guys keep this show going. I can't say that enough. But yeah, just to repeat, arrest Netanyahu, July 24th, Washington, D.C., show up at the Capitol, and I'm sure he will be just standing out front and ready for his citizen's arrest. So get him!
There's some, I was part of an attempted citizen's arrest of Kissinger many years ago.
Yes, you were with Code Pink.
Yeah.
Kissinger was testifying in Congress, and they held up handcuffs and everything.
And waved handcuffs in his face.
And John McCain, isn't it great that both those people are dead? John McCain lost his fucking mind. He was like, "These are low-life scum." Really? Yeah. They're asking for an arrest of a war criminal.
Anyway, so some people are. There has been some smattering of questions as to whether Netanyahu is still coming. He did cancel a trip back in March, but from what I understand, it's still very much a thing. If for no other reason, I think he still wants to give the middle finger to Biden, because don't forget, it's not Biden who's inviting him. It's Congress. It's bipartisan Congress who is inviting this horrific genocidal war criminal to Congress to speak.
Because Biden knows it doesn't look so good.
Well, and also Netanyahu wants to give Biden the middle finger and say, you should be doing more to support our genocide. So, and I think he wants to do that, like, literally in Biden's backyard. Though whether Biden knows where his backyard is a different question.
Okay, let's move on to the ICJ, what they just said. This is from Haaretz, which is a Israeli newspaper reporting on this. And please, everyone, thanks for the thumbs up. Thanks for the super chats. You're really helping out. ICJ, the International Court of Justice, announced its advisory legal opinion regarding the legality of Israel's occupation over the West Bank and East Jerusalem, calling Israel's occupation de facto annexation, which is a nice word for stealing.
Yeah.
And that Israeli...
Somebody de facto annexed my bike the other day.
Yeah, totally. Someone de facto annexed my rake out of the front yard. And the Israeli settlements in occupied Palestinian territories are illegal under international law. The ICJ called for the evacuation of Israeli settlements, for the return of displaced Palestinians, and the payment of reparations for damages. The court also called out Israel's systematic failure to prevent settler violence. Is it a failure or is it intentional? Prevent settler violence against West Bank Palestinians. The ICJ said Israel's occupation involves systematic discrimination, segregation, and apartheid, and racial segregation in the West Bank due to the complete separation of two peoples. Oh, almost sounds like an apartheid state. The ICJ also said that Gaza is effectively occupied by Israel, despite its, so this is a little Haaretz propaganda here. They want you to know, why would the ICJ say that when Israel disengaged, quote unquote, in 2005 from the Gaza Strip? Israel's nothing to do with the Gaza Strip since 2005, right? Right?
Because a bunch of troops left Gaza in 2005 that's like it would be like if a bunch of prison guards left the prison, but like
left
kept
it locked,
everybody on lockdown,
left gunmen at the doors.
Would you say that those people inside are now free?
Yeah. We'll have gunmen at the doors, allowed in a little bit of food, but less than actually could feed the people.
And
just
we're going to count the
watch
calories.
them starve. Allowed in little to no medical supplies. Would you go, oh, all those prisoners, they're now free?
Yeah.
Or would they not be so free?
Relatedly, Lee, 20 years ago, actually, this is from a week ago, so it's whatever, like I think it was July 12th.
I thought you were trying to add up what 20 years ago was, and I was like, that shouldn't take that long.
I am jealous of like, people born in 2000 will never have a hard time figuring out like how old they are, how old other people were born. But if it's like, oh, I was born in 1986. Okay, hold on. I gotta carry the one and then add the. It's annoying. Anyway, that's the side note. So on July 9th, 2004, the ICJ found that Israel's apartheid wall violated international law and should be dismantled. 20 years later, Israel has expanded the wall, which now stretches nearly 442 miles. So again, it's like this has been happening. And the ICJ, I mean, forget even just like, oh, this is happening. The ICJ has known that this has been a thing. Like, they're not new to the case of Israeli apartheid. They're not new to the case of Israeli ethnic cleansing. So already when the wall first started being constructed, 85% of that wall is built on, and they're saying Palestinian land illegally occupied by Israel in the West Bank. Now, all of it's illegally occupied, but as already
like super duper illegally
well,
occupied.
but that like the world courts have already agreed, right? So it's like
because there's like the illegal creation of the state of Israel, but this is going beyond even those borders into double illegally occupied. Like, this is outside what it was initially defined as Israel.
Right, exactly.
Thank you, Patchouli Diver.
And again, this wall severs Palestinians from not just their heritage and their families, but basic needs like food and drinking water. So instead of dismantling the wall,
thank you, Michelle, even though it's for Eleanor.
Instead of dismantling the wall in accordance with obligations under international law, Israel has spent the past 20 years using it as a tool to steal Palestinian land and oppress Palestinians. Newsflash to no one, really. But it's important to highlight this because, again, like people might recognize by now, especially if you listen to the show, that nothing started on October 7th, but nothing started for the international courts on October 7th either. They've been well aware of what's been going on. And I think this both shows how twisted and horrific Israel is, but it also shows that international courts, especially the ICJ, the ICC does have the power to arrest, but the ICJ doesn't really mean much. Unless, of course, as I had on the Project Censored show a while back, Hassan Ben Imran, who works with Law for Palestine, pointed out, unless the ICJ then decided to go to the Security Council and say, we need military action with regards to our decision, which, of course, seeing as the U.S. is on the Security Council, probably wouldn't go over great. But it's like this shows how hamstrung, kind of by design, the ICJ is. And of course, with the ICC, it's like, if you can just be the U.S. and say, we're not listening to you.
And if I can just throw in here, those who try and defend Israel, they'll pretend, they try and have it both ways. They'll pretend Gaza is, I'll just deal with Gaza for the moment, West Bank also, but they pretend Gaza is its own country because they'll go, well, Israel has no responsibility to give food or water or, voting rights to Gaza. Gaza, it's their own thing. And you go, oh, really? If it's its own thing, so Gaza's its own nation? Well, guess what? According to all international law, people in their nation have the right to come and go from their nation. You have a right to come and go. Now, your government may stop you, look at North Korea or something, but other countries are not allowed to stop you from coming and going. And yet Israel does not allow people to leave, come or go from Gaza. They've destroyed all their ports. With more on that in a moment. They've destroyed their airport. I was gonna say airplanes, but airport, airplanes, all that. They used to have an airport, no longer. So by putting up this wall, which is completely illegal, they've stopped one of the basic human rights, which is the right to come and go from your country. Let's see, what were we going to next? Let's move on to the fact that, since I mentioned the port and the piers, let's move on that the amazing U.S. pier, this amazing aid pier that the U.S. has been building with $300 million or 400 or whatever it was.
I think it was like 200 million.
Yeah, I thought it was like 320 or something, but
either way, a shit ton of money.
Shit ton of money. Mission accomplished. We did it. We went, we saw, we built that goddamn pier. We delivered stuff. Oh, was there stuff coming in on that pier? Oh, man. They have literally declared mission accomplished after delivering 1 day worth of food.
Also, can I just say that, like, as somebody who has used, like, what do you call them in English? Like, little, like, rafts.
Spatulas.
Little rafts of wood to make like kind of a makeshift little pier out into the water. Why not just do that? Why does it have to look?
Because they had to deliver tanks.
Why are tanks bringing aid, Lee?
That's the better question. That's a better question.
And let me tell you, those little wooden things that I built like probably cost $10. Anyway. So
now you got people trying to give you the word you wanted.
Slats?
Did you mean slats?
I don't know. Did
you mean rods?
No.
Did you? The live stream sometimes devolves into someone trying to help Eleanor find a word.
Find a word. Yeah. Look, there's like translation going on in my head. Okay. So, and again, like this was, they didn't really even get that much PR out of it because you delivered 1 day of food. And as
Dan offers up planks.
Sure. Thank you.
Pontoons.
Pontoon. I like pontoon.
Would you
anyway,
like to pontificate on the
would you like to shut
pontoons?
it so I can finish my thought?
Okay.
Thank you. So the thing here is that also, as with regards to the food, former Colonel, Army Colonel Ann Wright pointed out that this is not the kind of food that you can actually give people who are in these situations. This is food that is meant for, people to, like, armed forces to eat. It's not good food. It's shit food, as she pointed out. So to deliver this shit food to people, they built this astronomically obtuse and pointless pier when they could have, and there was a map, I believe we showed it on the show, of all of the entrances into Gaza, where there were hundreds of trucks with aid waiting to get in, which, by the way, is an easier way to get food into a place like Gaza than going through a fucking pier. So this whole thing was just a total farce. And I'm still struggling to figure out why, because some people, there were all these ideas as to why they were doing it at first. Some people were like, oh, they're going to start drilling for natural gas. Some people were like, oh, they're going to use it to attack people, which there were attacks.
They did use it on the attack that,
right,
quote unquote, rescued 4 hostages and killed 175 or 200 people.
Yeah. So they did do that, but not continuously. So I'm still struggling to figure out what was this all for.
So I think that it served the purpose of pretending the U.S. was doing something. It's also quite possible that it was.
Did the Pentagon just have like a bunch of money they needed to spend before the end of the fiscal
to re-up,
year?
Yeah. But I did cover when it was first starting, when they first started building it, that it was Netanyahu's idea. It came from Israel, the idea for this garbage. And I had theorized that it was likely to push Palestinians out onto ships, which then force African countries, and they had done this before years ago, force generally African countries, but other countries to take them in. And it's a form of ethnic cleansing. Now, that didn't end up happening. However, I was right about everything else, which is it was a Trojan horse. It was used in that attack. Both U.S. and Israeli military have been using this Pier to some degree, but also it is like they can't defend it. They've already been attacked on it several times. It can't apparently even survive the waves. So,
which I'm looking at this picture right here. The waves, I mean, these are not like off the coast of Portugal, extreme surfing kind of waves. Like
they're ripples. I mean, I do think when it fell apart, the waves were a little bigger, but I don't.
Okay, but still,
I don't think they were much.
This is not, these aren't like rogue waves kind of waves.
Yeah. So I think it was just a catastrophe from day one. But like we've been saying, the goal was never for it to be a success.
Right.
The goal was for it to look like the United States was doing something, but to help people. But if the U.S. actually wanted to do something to help people, they would A, stop shipping missiles every 36 hours. B, demand that Israel open the goddamn gates. I mean, it's just so stupid.
Mm-hmm.
From day one, it made zero sense other than to just like appear that they were doing something. I mean, that joke's just sitting there, though. You have to use it. It's like legally obligated.
It's like low-hanging fruit, isn't it?
No, it has to be done. Listen,
right?
I'm contractually obligated to be a comedian, so have to
they take your comedian
have to
card.
say the lines like that. They do take my comedian code. Okay, let's go to this has come out about Israel's plans going forward for Gaza as they continue to ethnically cleanse it. There is a report that has been receiving a lot of attention in the Israel higher circles. This is coming from Scahill's news site called Drop Site. Israel is reviewing a proposal to install a moderate Muslim puppet regime in Gaza. Benjamin Netanyahu has made clear he opposes any ceasefire with Hamas that does not allow him basically to continue the genocide. At the same time, the Israeli government has been entertaining dystopian and fundamentally unrealistic post-war plans for governing Gaza, either through occupation or, as one influential paper suggests, installing a moderate Muslim puppet regime.
I'm sure he's getting lessons on that from the U.S.
I know. The U.S. is like, hey.
Hey, we have a lot of...
We're a fucking marionette master over here. We have puppets all over the place.
The CIA is doing these kind of retreats where they teach people like Netanyahu how to install puppet regimes. They've got like yoga in the morning. It's really quite nice.
Israeli security officials praised the recent academic paper recommending the elimination of democracy in Gaza.
That suggests it's there to be eliminated.
that it ever was real. And the rebuilding of Gazan society into a moderate Muslim entity in the mold of the United Arab Emirates or Saudi Arabia. Just ethnically
Saudi Arabia is moderate?
Yeah,
that's hilarious.
Not at all.
That is hilarious.
Yeah, but I just love the idea that you're like, you just ethnically cleanse these people and then you can put in whatever you want afterwards. In the plan are several ideas for entirely remaking Gazan society, including destroying all refugee camps, banning every existing school book, and establishing total control of the media, hence assassinating 130 journalists. The proposal also calls for the elimination of the United Nations Relief and Works Agency, UNRWA, and shutting down the social and humanitarian programs run by Hamas and replacing them with alternative Israeli-controlled
Do you know what
structures.
this reminds me of? This reminds me of kill the Indian, save the man.
Oh, that horrible motto.
Right. Which was the motto used to kidnap indigenous children in the so-called United States and force them into quote-unquote boarding schools. And this is what that sounds like. Because what you're doing is you're ripping people not only away from their homes, which you've basically already done, you are ripping their culture from them, which rips themselves, their souls from these people. So taking out every existing school book, establishing total control of the media, raising refugee camps. Now, what is a refugee camp? It suggests that those people had a home that they could sometime return to, the right of return. But if you get rid of those, then you get rid of the memory, at least in officially, the memory of the idea that people have a right to return to a home. Now they are forever. And it was the same thing here, right? You remove this idea that these people, that the indigenous people belong here, that this is their home. Now they are at best guests, but at worst hostile visitors to the ruling system of the United States. And it's the same thing that Israel wants to do. It's killing the Palestinian and saving, the civilians. It's that same sick, twisted idea. But in reality, what you're doing, you're not creating a man, you're not creating a person. You're creating a soulless, hollow shell, because what is a person without their connection to self? So this is perhaps the most grotesque, this incredibly grotesque move, not just to kill someone, but to separate them from who they are. That is a kind of genocide that continues today in the United States, and obviously in Israel, in Australia and Canada, all of these places, all of these settler colonialist states. But the idea that you will be ripped from your ancestry, from yourself, and the only thing that you will know is what we tell you to know. This is remarkably twisted, but obviously not very surprising for Israel.
Exactly. And I was saying from a very early time after October 7th that what Israel was doing was not, it was a genocide, but it was also cultural genocide. It was everything you just said. And that also goes for blowing up all the schools, destroying all the hospitals, destroying all the cemeteries. They were bulldozing cemeteries. They can't claim that's to get Hamas, right? Bulldozing cemeteries. That's to cut the people's connection to the land, to cut their identity off. They were also killing all of the kind of educational leaders, the professors, the journalists, the poets, in order to cut off that education and that ability to even know and learn about your past and who you are. And it's so remarkably fucking repulsive on every level. And it just continues. And in this pathetic theatrical bullshit of a presidency that we have here, this goddamn campaign, they don't even discuss it. The closest they get to discussing what's going on in Gaza is the two of them arguing over who will facilitate the genocide more. That's how sick our fucking country has become. And it's just like, this is a US-backed genocide on every level. So you can't just say Israel.
No, well, Israel wouldn't exist. Israel got its mandate from Britain, but it was allowed to continue to exist because of the United States. I'm sorry.
And you're really into the phone calls today.
I never get phone calls, and now all of a sudden I've had two in the past 20 minutes. This is bizarre. I'm sorry. I think it's the CIA. But yes, absolutely to everything that you said. And again, if folks are looking for some more backstory on this, I definitely recommend the book by Rashid Khalidi, 100 Years War on Palestine. It's a terrible and a terribly beautiful and terribly gut-wrenching, but very important and necessary read for anybody who wants to know more about the history of what is known as Israel.
And this is an easy segue because we mentioned from that plan that is circulating within the top of Israel about replacing the government with moderate, some puppet government. In that plan, it says destroy UNRWA, which we know they've been working very hard Israel has to do to destroy. And I just need to repeat real quick. I covered it a lot when they were attacking UNRWA the first time or earlier, that it's not just a relief agency, this UN relief agency. It is so large, $1 billion a year. It's
a country.
It's the size of small countries. That's how massive this relief agency is. 30,000 employees, 700 schools in the Palestinian area, millions of medical visits every year. That's what Israel wants to destroy. And here's the segue to our next story, that Israel has destroyed the headquarters of UNRWA in Gaza. The head of the organization says it is another episode in the blatant disregard of international humanitarian law. Israel is a terrorist state. And I'll just play this without sound. But yeah, they've been going after UNRWA for a while now, both in order to just cut off all the aid they give to Palestinians, but also because it has, it's about refugees. Like if UNRWA exists, then you're acknowledging that these are refugees, and Israel does not want to acknowledge these are refugees. So it really is just repulsive. And Israel is rewriting what's supposed to be the norm, what we're supposed to take as the norm for these disgusting wars. It used to be that attacking anyone in the UN, any UN worker, was like a major egregious story. Now it's just daily for Israel.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think, some people in the chat have been saying that Israel is flailing and it's on its last legs. And I think that's very true. The question is just how much devastation will it take before Israel finally just falls into dust. And I think, again, there's a lot that we as children of empire can continue to do to keep pushing this issue, but it is dark. But as a Palestinian friend of mine said, that every day we wake up, we are one day closer to Palestine being free.
And I'll make this one the last story about Israel before we move to another topic for a minute. But the World Court has ruled. Oh wait, this is sorry, I pulled this up by mistake. This is actually just a different coverage of what we were saying about the ICJ. I think they just called it the World Court, but yeah, rejected the settlement. So
ICJ is the World Court for folks who are wondering.
Yeah. Anyway, sorry to bring that up twice, but
I know bears repeating.
Okay, let's get to what a wonderful man Biden is for immigrants real quick.
Oh, so this story, I think, is interesting from a propaganda perspective. I don't usually dabble with the Washington Examiner because they're a fucking right-wing horrific rag. But
this is reprinted on Microsoft, on MSN.
Is this what got it to shut down?
I'm surprised it even functions. I'm surprised we can read it.
Oh, they wouldn't want to take away your access to Washington Examiner.
That's true.
They might take away your heart monitor and your trip to Cancun, but they don't want to take away your Washington.
I'm trying to remember. Washington Examiner is that far right-wing Washington, D.C. newspaper?
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, this is good. Okay. So Reuters released a report. This was in early July that basically said Biden is now deporting more people than Trump. And it includes comments from Biden like this one. Today, I'm announcing actions to bar migrants who cross our southern border unlawfully from receiving asylum. And this is something that I also covered on Project Censored. And there's a great article by Natasha Leonard in The Intercept that talks about the history of Democrats at the border, including the fact that the border was militarized initially under Clinton after he passed NAFTA, because he knew that what was going to happen with the passage of NAFTA was going to cause a lot of destitution and oppression and pain in Mexico. And so he wanted to make sure that those people wouldn't come seeking help from the United States, who created this oppression. So that's a little bit of the backstory. And of course, Biden has continued to militarize the border. And then he released
It's given more money to DHS than Trump did. Yeah.
And then he released back in early June, he released this announcement that basically said that he was shutting down the border to asylum seekers, essentially. And then Reuters comes out with this headline that says that Biden is now deporting more people than Trump. And it's just so yummy. Okay. And then the Washington Examiner.
So let me just, before we say what they said, this is kind of upsetting. Liberals want to ignore this because they don't want to believe it's true. And then it's kind of upsetting to the right wing because they want to say, no, Biden has open borders, right? If you turn on Fox News over the past 3 years, it is just open borders bonanza. every
There's
30
just a bunch of
there's-
commies at the border
there's
fucking
just-
each other.
There's
and-
just a ticker that says open borders, open borders, open
Yeah.
borders. They just call it by you see interviews with Tulsi Gabbard going, I can't believe he just opened the border. And like that's it. That's all they're saying. So this article by Reuters and this reality is very upsetting to the right wing too. So it's kind of upsetting to both sides.
So, and then to people like you and me, it's not surprising. So what the Washington Examiner does is something that I wanted to highlight because, so first of all, they talk to one person, and that is former ICE Chief of Staff, John Pier. Yes, his last name is Pier. And he said that this is misleading because there's a difference between a removal conducted by U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement, ICE, and a return conducted by U.S. Customs and Border Protection, CBP, both of whom I lovingly called the Gestapo. So,
so this is couched in the article is saying that
So
the article saying the Reuters article is bullshit.
that the Reuters article is wrong because there is a difference between returns and removals. Now, see, what we have to understand here is that there is an administrative reality that people like this piece of shit hide behind. It's not deportations, they're removals, they're or their returns. So they were never actually in our system, which means that they don't count. They're not part of the numbers, right? This is the administrative reality, kind of like collateral damage, right? It's this language, this language that they hide behind in order to make it seem like what they're doing is less totally horrific and less terrorism, when in reality it is. And of course, this makes the point that the lived reality for you can label someone a return or a removal. The lived reality for them is pretty much the same.
They were a pushback. It's not.
Right.
It's not.
So
the same.
so it means that people are going to be suffering. In some cases, many people will die, especially because it's summer in the desert, and CBP has a long and lovely history of destroying water that's put out by activists along the border. The lived reality for people is not going to change based on whether you call them a removal or a return.
It's like when they changed what counts as homeless. It's like if you have a house or a roof over your head for more than 3 days a month, then that's not homeless anymore. Oh, well, I guess that means there's less homeless.
Or when Trump just
Nope.
changed the definition of what poor is, and it's like, oh, I guess we just don't have poor people anymore. And so he says that the other thing that he says, which is dumb. I mean, everything he says is dumb, but he says people who are apprehended by CBP and then returned to Mexico within a few hours. So here's the other thing. These people, it's not like you're returning them home and like somebody lost a cat and you're like, oh, hey, Mrs. Johnson, I'm returning Mr. Bigglesworth. Like, here you go. People are being forced, not returned. People are being pushed and shoved violently back into a country that's not theirs. Most of these people, a significant majority of these people, are not from Mexico. So the idea that you're returning them to Mexico, like that lost cat, yes, Mr. Bigglesworth, is ridiculous because they're not from there. It's like, if somebody was returning you home and you ended up in fucking Seattle and you live in Baltimore, it's like, that's not helpful to me.
And most of them are fleeing countries we've destroyed.
Exactly. Well, I mean, that's a whole different story, but it's like, I wanted to highlight this because I think it's really important. I mean, a lot of people watching this or listening to this understand the propaganda that is shoved into our faces every single day. But a lot of this can still get through some of our BS monitors sometimes. A return or they were removed. Also, the way that sounds, right? People, it sounds like you call an exterminator. I want these pests removed. I want the cockroaches removed. The way that makes you think about these human beings is really important. And so I bring up this absolute toilet paper should be used to wipe shit article for that reason, and so that we also understand that there is this kind of like back and forth about who can be the most horrific. It's a race to the bottom. Biden wants to show that he can be the biggest terrorist at the border and in Israel. And Trump is eager to show again how much of a terrorist he can be at the border and in Gaza. So there is no legitimate difference. There is no legitimate difference in the lives of the people at the border who are being oppressed and torn apart from their families. There's no lived experience that is different between red MAGA and blue MAGA. It's all bullshit and it's all a farce. And there's just one more thing that I want to point out. When Biden came up, thank you. When Biden came up with this announcement that he was going to stop asylum seekers at the border, he tweeted out, "There's one thing that I won't do. I won't separate families." But here's the thing. You can say that and it sounds really good, but you are, because as part of this administrative policy, unaccompanied minors can still seek asylum. So what does that mean? That means, and I spoke to someone who had seen this happen at the border in real time, a mother hugging her kid and pushing them through the border so that they would be picked up by CBP as an unaccompanied minor. Because if she went with them, they'd be pushed back. So you are fucking splitting up families, you absolute piece of shit. And you're well aware, well, you might not even know what planet you're on, but the people around you know that shit, which is why, again, I think it's so important to highlight that the Republicans are oftentimes more open and honest about the shit that they want to do. They're like, yeah, I'm a monster. Fucking come at me, bro. But the Democrats are like, we really care about you and we're not going to separate families. And we really want to minimize civilian casualties in Gaza. But then they do the same shit. And often, just like Reuters pointed out correctly, actually, that they do it better. They do it better. So I think that it's really, really important to highlight that. And again, thank you for coming to my TED Talk.
Whenever you end with "thank you for coming to my TED Talk," I have to laugh because it's funny. But it's like
Well,
the whole
actually...
rant. The whole rant was not funny. It was just it was based. You know, it was just good. And so I'm kind of like, I'm in the mood to be like, absolutely. And then you make me laugh with the TED Talk. So
I don't know how to end. You know, I'm like, as a
scene,
as a singer, I'm used to having like the big like drum drop, but I don't have that. So now I have to just be like, bah!
Well, and it'd be weird to pick up this microphone, so you don't have a mic to drop. So you just have to.
I have to pick up the microphone to drop it.
You could just pretend mic drop.
Can I have a mic? Can I have a different mic to drop?
No, you may not.
Can I drop a pen?
Pen drop, yeah. That's what they did after they signed the Declaration of Independence. It's a quill drop.
A quill drop. It just floats.
All right, folks, we're going to wrap up, but I have another special segment for those of you over on Locals, for the people supporting this show over there. I'm going to do another comedy segment for you guys on AI and my thoughts on AI stealing jobs.
Is the segment written by AI?
Yeah, I don't even know what it says. AI wrote it for me. But yeah, so special segment for all of you. If you want to join up over there and you're not currently a member over on Locals, then go to leecamp.net right now, scroll down to become a subscriber, and you can sign up there and see the extra segment, which will be in about a minute. If you're not, though, I'm going to say howdy. And for those of you listening to the podcast, thanks a lot and keep rocking.
In the free world. No?
Hey, you finally said something
scoot?
at the end. No, don't scoot.
I want to scoot.
But thanks, everybody. And to everybody at Locals, I am going to cover the screen for a second, but to everybody at Locals, hang in there. Don't hang up your computers. Don't hang up your
Microsoft.
Don't hang up your Microsoft. And I'll see you in 1 minute, Locals. 1 minute.